If you want to write stories your readers will love, there are 3 things you need to do. Understand storytelling principles, see how others have applied the principles, and then use them in your own work. Here on the Story Nerd podcast, our goal is to demystify story theory. We'll help you with the first 2 steps so that you can get started with the third. My name is Valerie Francis. I am a writer and I'm a story editor, and I teach women who are writing in all genres how stories work so they can finish their books faster and without frustration.
I'm Melanie Hill, writer, editor, and poet, and I help writers identify and solve their story problems.
On today's episode, Melanie pitched Tar so that we can study the shadow. This 2022 film was written and directed by Todd Field. Of course, there will be spoilers because we can't talk about the movie without talking about the movie. I don't think it's going to hurt this time. I really don't. And as always, we would love it if you would help other writers find our show by leaving a rating and review. Apple Podcast listeners, you can do it right from your phone. Just scroll to the landing page, go all the way to the bottom, click the 5 stars, maybe jot a word or 2. It's that simple. All right, Melanie, The Shadow. How did you go this week?
Wow, this is fascinating, especially since last week we studied Dial M for Murder, right? But I will say, compared to Tony from last week, Lydia Tar is a far more nuanced and tricky character, right? She is a bit more slippery to look at and analyse, especially from the Shadow's point of view. But just like last week's movie, this movie is about a villain and the story is told from the villain's point of view. However, Tar is far more nuanced as a character compared to Tony. Her brilliance is celebrated by all the elite of the arts world, but it hides a self-serving predator. Now, there are 2 aspects of Tar, the professional and the private person, the artist and the art, and the benevolent and the abusive. So she is a very complicated and complex character. But this movie is like a mosaic or a puzzle like the ones that don't have straight edges. I don't know if you've ever done any of those, but they are incredibly hard to do. You have to fit all the pieces together, and sometimes you're not really sure if they actually fit or they're in the right places. Now, since the start of the season, I've pointed out that a character's shadow isn't always bad or dark. It is simply the part of them that is either hidden or suppressed. Now, the shadow can be positive as well as negative. However, Tar's shadow is all negative. It's all negative character traits. But what makes her more nuanced than other characters is how slowly this is revealed over time. Now, while I took the view last week that Nice Tony was real Tony's shadow, this week I'm taking a slightly different view of Tar because Tar justifies her own behaviour to herself. Her public persona is presented in the first parts of the movie during the live interview with the New Yorker's art critic. And it's a fascinating scene. It's long and deliberately pretentious. If anyone can truly understand what they are saying, then that would be really interesting, because I think it is deliberately pretentious so that you are meant to feel like you don't understand what they're talking about. But then the pieces of the Tar puzzle start dropping. There's the text messages mocking her, the flirting with the stranger at the interview reception, admiration of her skill and expertise as a conductor, her criticism and mocking of the Juilliard students, her love for Petra, and her disdain for Francesca, who is quite clearly in love with her. And what she did to Krista, this is right, slowly revealed. But what becomes clear is that while Tar might be a musical genius, her treatment of the people around her reveals that she is not a good person. And her character is truly revealed by her treatment of the people closest to her. But what's compelling about Tar's shadow is that it's obfuscated by her public persona. But her shadow is huge, but it is also hidden by those around her and those who overlook it because of her talent. That Tar's shadow is revealed when it becomes so big and that it starts hurting people around her. So the foundations, the sponsors, employees, the lawyers, and Tar's wife, Sharon, finally won't buffer her from the consequences of her actions, as well as it's the same time as the public finds out about what she's been doing. Now, last week I talked about nice Tony versus real Tony, and this week I think we have Conductor Tar and the rest of her. Conductor Tar does hide the rest of her from the public, but Tar also tells herself a different narrative about her actions and decisions, whereas Tony is very upfront about what he's doing and why he's doing it. It is not that way for Tar. Now, Krista's suicide is the point where Tar's facade starts to fall apart publicly. This is also the point where we have enough pieces of the puzzle, of the Tar puzzle, to start working out who Tar really is. And the enormity of Tar's disguise and her camouflage is revealed throughout the second half of the movie. Now, this week I want to draw your attention back to how the shadow of a villain point of view character is revealed. The ending of the movie is ambiguous, and there are multiple interpretations of the meaning of the end. But I'm going to take the end as a negative for Tar because she is so far removed from where she wanted to be, and she has lost a lot. So this is a cautionary tale. So Tar cannot overcome her shadow, and it would be a massive redemption arc if she did. And I do believe that it would be unbelievable if if the story ended in any way positive or there was any positive interpretation of what's happened to her. Now, I've really considered if I should classify Tar as a villain instead of a protagonist. Now, technically, there's an argument to be made about her being a protagonist because she is the point of view character. And she is interesting because Cate Blanchett is so good in the role. She is spectacular. I think this is the best role that I've seen her in. But Tar is a villain. And if you recall from season 2, a villain is a character who has evil intent. And while Tar didn't go out of her way to kill Krista, she was aware that she was destroying Krista's life. And there were even enough signals to understand that Krista was at risk. And Tar even wrote that out because Krista is an anagram of Krista is at risk. Tar was also aware of the impact of her infidelities on Sharon, but she didn't care and she still went ahead. So she is a villain in my mind. And the other interesting thing to think about as Tar as a villain was where your empathy sits. Now, I did find Tar curious, but I did not have any empathy for her at all in the movie. And when I say she was cute, like I had curiosity for her, it was really in the first quarter of the movie because her character dimension was so complex and the subtle way she was drawn and revealed was so interesting. But the real moment that Tar lost me was when she dropped Petra off at school and threatened the bully Joanna. Now, Tar's behaviour towards Joanna is a defining moment, and not in a good way. Tar isolated a child, threatened her, and told her that if she ever tells an adult, then they won't believe her. This is the language of a powerful abuser who expects to get away with everything. Now, think back to the episode where we studied the movie She Said, and you will see exactly the same types of behaviours talked about. Now, in summary, what I thought was interesting about the shadow in Tar was how Tar's behavioral pattern was overlooked because of her talent until the point where it couldn't be ignored. And the villain plots a path to their own destruction. And Tar's shadow is who she really is. All right, Valerie, how did you go this week with Tar?
Aha, well, this one is fascinating. All right, I want you to think back to last season when I studied the villain's monologue. And Melanie, you just mentioned the film She Said. Well, guess what? I'm talking about it too. In episode 4, we studied She Said. And at that time, I pointed out that the villain's monologue was given by a character who is not, in fact, the villain. And that was because the villain does not admit to any wrongdoing. It's Harvey Weinstein, and he absolutely refuses or categorically denies any wrongdoing throughout the whole thing. Because he doesn't admit to the behavior, he therefore cannot or will not give an explanation or a reason for the behavior. So therefore, he cannot deliver the villain's monologue. His PR guy does it for him, or his lawyer. I can't remember who it is, but there's another character who does it for him. And remember, these monologues, the villain's monologue and the hero's monologue, they're all about giving the audience or the reader an explanation for the behavior. Why are they doing what they're doing? And this is an essential bit of theory, because if the character doesn't have a very good reason for the behavior, like if there's nothing really at stake for the character, then at the first sign of difficulty, she's going to bail. She'll quit. And your story's done. Or worse, the character doesn't quit, and then the reader or audience gets confused because they don't understand what the why is. What's the good reason for them going on with this thing? Like they're going to get bored with the story. They're going to get confused, and they also won't feel compelled to keep watching. So, Melanie, yeah, this is an interesting movie. I totally see why you picked it for a study of the shadow. Absolutely. And like you, I can also see why they chose someone like Cate Blanchett to play the role of Lydia Tar, because you need someone of that caliber to pull this kind of story off, because everything is below the surface. Everything is below the surface. And that's really hard to do in a film, because a film is a visual medium. And if they're not overtly doing something, what is there to watch? The whole beginning of this movie, like Melanie said, it's all exposition, massive amounts of exposition for the first maybe half hour. And it's a long movie. It's like 2.5 hours. And that New Yorker interview is long, 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 long. You really got to want to watch this movie to stick through it. If you're wondering why we recommend you don't have huge passages of exposition in your work, watch this movie and see the effect of huge amounts of exposition on you as the audience. See if you start to lose interest. I remember I did check the time a couple of times through this, because I was like, oh my God, is this over yet? Even though I knew it was 2.5 hours. I'm like, surely we've been watching for 2 hours by now, and I was still in the first half hour. So it's a very slow movie. It's a very long movie. It's a movie you have to pay close attention to. You can't have this on in the background while you're cooking supper. It's just not going to work. All right. So if the function of the hero's monologue or villain's monologue is to explain to the audience why the character does what she does, then logically, the character needs to know why she is doing what she is doing. She needs to own up to her behavior. Say, yeah, I am doing this, and this is why I am doing this. Now, the protagonist might not know the true reason why she is doing it. Like we've already seen that a couple times this season. The beginning of the movie, they're not sure what the real reason is, but by the end of the movie, they do. They get it. We saw that in The Proposal and in The Substance. Totally different films, but approached the hero's monologue with the same strategy, which is really interesting. All right, so logically, we can follow this. This all makes sense. Except that none of it applies to Tar. So Tar is a movie that is much like She Said in that it deals with issues of sexual assault and harassment. However, whereas She Said is told from the journalist's point of view, that is, the people who are investigating and seeking justice, Tar is told from the villain's point of view. And Melanie, you just talked about all this. Lydia Tar is the one using her position of privilege to assault and manipulate women who report to her. She's the Harvey Weinstein. She's the anti-hero. And like Harvey Weinstein, and She Said, Lydia Tar does not admit to any of the behavior that she is accused of. None of it. It's all somebody else's problem. It's Krista's problem because she's mentally deranged or she's obsessed with Lydia. It's the other conductor's fault because he's too stupid to be a conductor. It's her wife's fault because she's jealous. It's Francesca's fault because she's always on her phone. Lydia doesn't accept any responsibility. She doesn't see anything wrong with what she's doing. She sees a problem with everybody else around her, and that never changes. However, and Melanie, you just talked about this, and I pulled out exactly the same point. Everyone else around Lydia sees her for who she is, and they call it out. Sebastian is the first one to call it out. And in the scene where she's firing Sebastian, but she's being cute about it. Let me put it that way. And Sebastian sees right through it. Just before the midpoint, he calls her out and he says, "It's the girl, isn't it?" Meaning Olga, the new cellist. "It's the girl, isn't it? I knew as soon as she showed up that my days were numbered. Andreas told me not to worry, but I knew." Tar's response is, "I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about." To which Sebastian replies, "Oh, please, just because nobody dares breathe it, we know the things you do, the little favors you grant." So he's the first one to call it out. But at the slightest bit of pushback from Tar, because at this Tar becomes insulted, right? Like, how dare you accuse me of little favors? At the first sign of pushback, poor little Sebastian, he backs down. He is not up to duking it out with Tar on any level. She is a force to be reckoned with. She's a very strong character. Every other character in her world is inferior to her and weaker than her, and they cannot stop her. She just steamrolls over everybody and everything, and she wins. Why? Because she is the maestro. She is viewed as a singular artistic talent, and they are willing to overlook everything because she makes them money, basically. So Sebastian, like all of the other characters, is complicit. We have Newt, right? He allows her to push Sebastian out of his job without following the rules because they have to vote on all this kind of stuff, and no, she wants him out, and so Newt caves like immediately. He doesn't even try to put up a fight. Even Sharon, Lydia's wife, even Sharon turns a blind eye. She knows what Lydia is like, and she accepts the cruelty that Lydia inflicts on others. Sharon knows that all of Lydia's relationships are transactional, all except the one she has with their daughter. Sharon only pushes back when Lydia excludes her. As long as Sharon and Lydia are partners, Sharon can accept the behavior. When Lydia shuts her out, Sharon, like Francesca and Olga, lashes out. And this is what sort of seals Lydia Tar's fate. This is when the tides start to change for her. And Sharon says, in a great little monologue of her own, she says, "There are many things I accept about you. And in the end, I'm sure I could get over something like this," meaning Tar's affair with Olga, or attempted affair with Olga. "But that's not what we're talking about, is it? These accusations from the girl who died. Do you know what it was like to walk into my sectional yesterday and to see everybody whispering about me? It's got nothing to do with what they're accusing you of. It's a simple matter of not warning me that our family is in danger. I deserve that. Those are the rules. You are to ask for my counsel the way you always have, the way you did when you first arrived here as a guest conductor looking for a permanent position. You asked me what were the politics, what were the moves, how could we swing it? Of course, those conversations took place in another bed, or rather, the couch of that horrible place you still can't let go of. So Sharon doesn't even have a problem with the accusations against Lydia Tar that she, at a very least, contributed to Krista's suicide. She's okay with the affairs. All of that she can overlook. What she can't overlook is that the other musicians in her sectional are whispering about her, and Lydia is not including her in the decision making. That's her line in the sand. You know, these people, holy cow. The whole film is filled with complex and nuanced characters. So if you want to study complex and nuanced characters, wow, this is a film for you. It really is. And how actions reveal the character. Like, I know that's not what either one of us is talking about this week, but it's a great film for that and for exposition. So Lydia is, we've said, Melanie and I have both said that she is a villain, but she's an anti-hero. And she is a constant character. She has a spectacular fall from grace. Like, holy cow, she goes from Maestro, who is, being given private jet plane rides and big fancy New Yorker interviews to conducting an orchestra in I don't even know where, the Philippines or something. I'm not even sure where she is. But she's conducting an orchestra there for gamers, for cosplay people who have come to the theater to listen to live music accompany a video game. I mean, it's a spectacular fall from grace. But at no point does Lydia admit to any wrongdoing. And we see no evidence that she has changed or will ever change. Yes, she is sickened by the brothel, this high-class brothel that she ends up in. When she wanted just a massage, right? Like a legit massage for sore muscles, right? And her request for, do you know somewhere I can get a massage, is misinterpreted, and she gets sent to this brothel. And that sickens her. But there's nothing that we can point to that says that she equates that kind of activity in a brothel with the kind of abuse of girls that she did. I don't think she sees the two as similar in any way. They're worlds apart. One of them sickens her, and the other one she kind of sees as her right. Like you said that in the shadow in a female character is sort of absorbed into the character. And that is what is going on with Tar. It is absorbed into the character. There isn't a good Tar and a bad Tar, like there was a good Tony and a bad Tony, or the nice Tony, which was the shadow, and the real Tony, which is the antihero. There isn't a nice Lydia Tar. And that's fine with her. And that's fine with everybody else. Her shadow is very much integrated. Really interesting. So all of this to say that in Tar, there is no hero's monologue because Lydia Tar never admits to what she's done. And even though other people know what she has done, nobody offers any explanation as to why she does it. She denies any part in Krista's death. She denies granting any little favors, as Sebastian puts it. She denies that she has any interest in Olga beyond that of a professional interest, a professional as the maestro and the cellist. Any negative thing that happens, as far as Lydia is concerned, is somebody else's fault, and everyone else in her world goes along with it. All right, Melanie, that's all I have to say about that right now. What do you have for the action step today?
All right, well, I want you to think about your villain's shadow. When does it become clear that the villain's true nature is revealed, and what does it tell the reader about the villain?
Well, that wraps it up for this week. Join us again next week when we discuss something totally different, the holdovers. To support the show, please leave us a rating and review and tell your writer friends about us. For the power to write a best-selling story, check out our courses, storynerd.ca/courses. To join my inner circle, go to valeriefrancis.ca/inner circle. For tips about books to help you read like a writer, visit Melanie at melaniehill.au. And remember, story theory does not have to be difficult. It's a tool to help you write more, not less. So take it one step at a time and have fun.